Alright, so this video is going to show you the before and after of a hydroseeding project I did at my house in Boise, Idaho, summer 2024. And when I moved into the house, the yard was really just a bunch of dead grass and weeds, and it just wasn't salvageable, so I decided to go the hydroseeding route because sod was just so expensive.
Who's that?
And the first step of the project was to hire somebody to come out and gut the yard, basically remove all the old grass and all the old weeds that. All right, it is Wednesday, July 24th, and we are gonna go check out the yard. They just did the yard prep for the hydroseeding, and this is the first time the boys are gonna go out to a yard that's not a bunch of weeds. Let's see how they like it. Enzo, come on. You can see pretty much all of the grass, or really all the weeds, are gone. And it is just all leveled out here now, which is awesome. Nice and soft. So there's some remaining grass here around the sprinkler heads, but not much. And man, wow, this is so much more level. It's crazy how large this the yard looks when it's not just a bunch of weeds. So, let's see here. So this is gonna look really good in a couple of weeks. Coming to hydroseed this Monday. All right, it's hydroseed Monday. The hydroseeding company is coming in about 10 minutes to start, and they asked me to run all of the sprinklers for a few minutes just to dampen the ground. They said that will really help the hydroseed basically, I guess, kind of stick to the surface a little bit better. So just to dampen it, but also not muddy it. And so it looks like it's gonna be a great day here, and I'll just kind of walk through what the property looks like so we can get a good before and after. All right, so beautiful morning. Ran the sprinklers, and I did notice that there are two drier areas here. However, I'm not too concerned about them because they are going to be just fine once the rotaries have more time to run. And so all of that should work itself out. And you can kind of see through here, the yard, it's nice and damp, and it's all going to be covered in short order with the hydroseed. And so the coverage here in the yard looks really good. There are two drier spots all the way up there, but I'm not too concerned about that because they can always be covered with some mulch later on. So kind of walk around here. There's also a lot of coverage here on some of these rotaries that can be dialed back a little bit, potentially. But we have to see the ramifications of if I do dial some of those rotaries back up there, are they going to get to the areas out there that they need to serve? And so also there's a lot of water that's here. Luckily I've got this tarp down, it really helps. And then you can kind of see across here, this is where the RV pad's going to be. And so this will all be gravel and it's not getting watered down. So that's pretty convenient actually. And it's the gate there that they're gonna come through. All right, so the hydroseeding company just came. They just gave me this instructional packet that I got to read on what the next 60 days is going to look like. But you can see that they have a hose out here, and you can also kind of see that these guys are also really interested in what's going on here. They are still working on this section of the yard, but they are coming through and spraying the seed with some fiber and some other things that kind of keep it moist. And so the gentleman over there is working on that, and it's almost done actually. They're going through this pretty quickly. All right, just got back to Boise. It has been officially 9 days since the hydro seed, and you can see the grass is really starting to grow in. Ooh, get out of the way of the sprinkler here. It looks like there are some areas that are clearly dry that the sprinklers are not hitting at the recommended frequency and times that the hydro seed company did. So I'll have to look into that, but overall, it's definitely looking very promising, and should be able to plug these little brown spots in once the sprinklers get adjusted. All right, so it's been 12 days since the lawn was hydro seeded, so we're gonna take a look and see how this thing's coming along. All right, so you can see that the grass is really starting to grow in pretty nicely. It's pretty thick here for day 12, and those brown spots that I saw on day 9 due to insufficient sprinkler coverage because I was away on a trip, they actually started to grow, started to come back as soon as I started to do some hand watering. My sprinkler guy won't be here until next Thursday, so in the meantime I just started to hand water with a simple attachment onto a hose, and that's been working pretty well. Been doing that a couple times a day, and so you'll notice there's even this brown spot, you're starting to see some seeds come in. And so overall this grass is looking pretty incredible for middle of a hot Idaho summer, and that's been typically 95 to 100 degrees each day. And yeah, so these are the 2 brown spots that I'll be coming back to check in with you guys on to show you progress. But I do see, it's probably really hard to see from this camera, I do see some really small seeds coming up, the start of the seedlings. So really encouraging, because for all I knew they could have been dead. You also see this area over here starting to fill in with a little bit of grass as well, which was totally brown. And this is the area that I'm really focused on making sure it comes back to life with some of the hand watering. And so yeah, really impressed overall. Definitely got to do some sprinkler adjustments. This here is just too wet, so the sprinklers need to be calibrated away from this zone here, and they just need to get some more equal coverage across the area, because there is grass growing here, but this is just constantly wet and really muddy. So, and then this is another area here that's showing where it was brown, but if you kind of take a look down here, you can really start to see the startings of the seedlings coming back, which is actually really cool. Again, I thought this area for sure would have been dead. So. All right, so it's been about 6 days since I started manually hand watering these brown spots that don't get enough coverage with the sprinkler. And so what's really cool is you'll notice that this growth is really robust. So the hydro seed area didn't die during that somewhat dormant period when it wasn't getting enough water, compared to the rest of this grass, which looks really good. All right, it's been about 2 weeks since the hydro seeding, and it's a beautiful Idaho morning out here. It's probably mid-70s, and the grass is coming in really nicely. I can't believe it's summer and it looks like this. There are a few spots that were needing some hand watering, so I've been doing that every day last 6 days, but they are starting to show some growth, which is great. So these should be filled in pretty nicely within the next 10 days here. Those are kids screaming, so that's not somebody getting murdered. All right, so day 20, just did my first mow today because the grass was getting to be about 5-6 inches in some places. And man, the striping is looking pretty awesome. There's a couple spots here that were a little bit underwatered, so I left those blank. But yeah, overall really happy with how this grass looks like 20 days in. And so looking forward to it getting a little bit thicker, filling in this area here that's still growing. But yeah, awesome so far. All right, so it's literally been now 4 weeks since I did the hydro seeding. I'm just gonna do a check-in on the grass. Did my second mow just today, and the striping looks great on this lawn. Definitely the first time I've ever had stripes on a lawn, and overall looks really good. And just kind of checking in, wanted to check in on some of those areas that I showed earlier. These were some of the areas that were a little bit ungrown in just due to sprinkler coverage. But even this spot here, you know, this gets a little bit more shade, but it almost looks like it's fully grown in. And this was completely brown versus these other areas in the rest of the property that were getting sprinkler coverage. So it does definitely come back. You just gotta make sure to water it by hand or by sprinkler and make sure that you're getting the proper water coverage to it. The one thing to note I will say is that it's probably easier just to adjust your sprinklers, but some of the adjustments that I need are gonna require a little bit of digging, and I just didn't wanna throw that into the mix and get my yard all messy and such. But some of these areas are gonna be a little bit sparse, but these are probably spots that hopefully will fill in when this grass starts to grow. But you can see that this is still pretty immature. Most of the mowing that I just did didn't even actually touch the top of this, so we're still under 4 inches, which is what I mowed to. But yeah, this was another area back here, and this looks great. This was completely brown before. And just want to show one more spot over here that was a little bit on the dry side that's filled in. This area here has actually gotten too much water, so this is something that probably gonna have to fix. This is the opposite problem, where the grass grew right away, but it just pulls up a little bit too much from the sprinklers. And this area here was all brown, and now it's just really filled in nicely. Again, this has got shade. Shade's definitely gonna help it, those brown spots that you have, as long as you give it some good hand watering. So overall, just really happy with how this looks so far, and looking forward to doing a check-in in a couple weeks when I can let these dogs grow on the lawn. So at about 6 weeks in, I started to see some weeds appear throughout the lawn, and I contacted my hydro seeding guy, who told me that it was safe at that point to have some post-emergent applied to the lawn. And so I called a licensed lawn care professional. This one was named, I think, Lawn Doctor, who came out and they just did a treatment on the lawn. And then those weeds quickly just started to go away. And then after about 2 mowings after that, you really couldn't see many weeds. So at about 6 weeks in, my lawn looked strong enough for the dogs to start running on it. And I've got 2 sighthounds that just love to run. So I was a little bit hesitant about letting them out until they could really get out there and start running without just tearing the grass up. And then one thing to note, you'll see in this photo, there's some wheelbarrow marks and from some of the equipment. I would have definitely done the mulch first, but I was just putting this whole thing together on the fly. And so, you know, you live and you learn, but it would definitely have made sense to do the mulch and all that landscaping around the border before doing the grass. So I just wouldn't have to, you know, get equipment all over it. But that grass is already starting to come back. That was kind of mowed down a little bit from those machines. Would highly recommend hydro seeding, especially if you're doing it in the middle of the summer. And just props to the guys over at GreenAcres here in Boise, Idaho.